Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
If you are interested in serving on your local Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council, the deadline to apply is Friday, March 21st. The councils provide information and recommendations to the Federal Subsistence Board on subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing. For more information on the advisory councils and how to apply, call 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov. This message sponsored by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the warning map here we've got winter storm warning continuing for the heavy snow still going on in the Haines area, and that extending on up the highway there to Skagway. Quarter-mile visibility, heavy snow in Haines, and about 3/4 of a mile at late this afternoon up towards Skagway there. But areas to the south, this is Juneau, been rain most of the afternoon. Today they picked about 2/3 of an inch, and another 5 to 7 inches of snow expected in these areas overnight tonight, and that should begin to change over to rain in some areas, but other locations probably might remain snow overnight tonight. This is a watch here for Monday, a blizzard watch for the western portions of Prince William Sound. Whittier, those areas on down towards Moose Pass. Big storm coming up from the south, expected to move in by Monday morning here. So it could be some blizzard conditions developing in this area at that time. And one more area up to the north, wind chill advisory right up in this location here. Gusty north winds, could see wind chills of 40 below zero tonight. Say Shishmaref on up to the Kivalina area over to Point Hope, Cape Lisburne. Those areas gust 30 to 40 miles an hour to the north. Now probably will end sometime during the morning hours tomorrow morning, continuing through tonight. Yesterday we could see that big storm that spread the snow initially into the southern panhandle. It had changed over to rain by sometime during the morning Friday, and then snow spreading northward with the frontal boundary right through this area, overrunning all the cold air over the northern southeast coast. A lot of sunshine over the southern interior areas, as well as portions of the north central regions. Out to the west, just a lot of cold air. You can see the ice edge quite clearly right through this area, extending down toward Nunivak Island, actually a little to the south of Nunivak Island, but really stands out well up here to the north. All that cold air coming down and coming out over the open water, picking up a lot of cloudiness, more breaks in the clouds here over the southern Bering Sea with some bands of moisture through here. Sunshine for Bristol Bay and areas of low clouds and fog at times there on the Arctic coast. That continued into today with northerly flow, kind of a weak upward disturbance covering the eastern interior. North of the Brooks Range, a lot of clouds banking up on the north slope areas there, but scattering out a little bit back to the coastal locations. And cold temperatures this morning. Again, clear skies, temperatures 30 to 40 below zero over the Yukon Flats. Eagle at 32 below this morning. And a lot of the area here below zero, but temperatures rose nicely during the afternoon hours here, especially over the sunshine areas of south central Alaska out to Bristol Bay. Kodiak looking pretty good. And now the big portion of that system having pushed off to the east there, we still have this area right through here bringing the snow and the moisture into the panhandle there. Quite a bit of moisture over the northern half, a little less down to the south, but this area rotating in picked that up again this afternoon into areas like Ketchikan and Annette, which saw 1.16 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. Some of this slipped on up, of course, to Yakutat, who had over an inch also, some of that falling as snow. And then some of the snow did slip over into the Cordova area and possibly eastern Prince William Sound, especially along the Wrangell Mountains there and into the Kennecott, McCarthy areas, but just clouds up toward Northway in those areas. Lots of clear skies out here over the southwest Bering and off the coast there. But kind of a band here, something of a frontal boundary, Arctic boundary with a colder air to the north, a little bit milder air to the south, and some rain showers, managed about a tenth of an inch of rain or so at Unalaska, with some even showers of rain or snow occurring over the Alaska Peninsula today. Not bad out over the Aleutians, just some scattered clouds, and winds were on the light side. But again, those gusty north winds continuing to blow through the Bering Strait down from the Chukchi Sea. On the chart, the reason why, big high pressure area over the Russian Far East there, and then lower pressure is usually the case this time of the year over the Gulf of Alaska and the Aleutians. So good northeast winds between those two centers with that continues to pull the cold air down into the northern Bering Sea out of the Arctic. Up here to the north, again, areas of low clouds, fog and flurries, a couple of troughs dropping down from the Arctic there, but nothing too significant and nothing really reaching south of the Brooks Range there. It's all backed up on the north side. Just clear skies all the way down into the Gulf of Alaska here in the Kenai Peninsula, but then you pick up the clouds and again the snow still going on over the Lynn Canal area with rain, occasionally heavy rain. In fact, wind gusts ahead of this front this morning are still in the 35 to 40 mile an hour range at Sitka. We'll see tonight that pushes off to the east, a couple of troughs still coming through, so the conditions will become a little less rainy or a little less snowy, a little more showery, which implies more on and off conditions to the precipitation there. Holding on to snow over the extreme northern areas, more of a mixed rain and snow condition down to the south, to just plain rain over the extreme southern areas. Again, some of this moisture cutting off right at about the Cordova area. So Yakutat's going to stay wet with snow up into the southeast portion of the state, about where it is currently going on. That's going to linger through tonight, but a lot of clearing over the interior, some brisk northeast winds with nothing too serious, but pretty clear skies right up to the Brooks Range. No change for the Arctic coast there, and here's a gusty east wind. You can see the lines are closest together here from the, St. Lawrence Island right up into the Chukchi Sea. So those areas will be under the wind chill advisories for those wind chills to 40 below zero. Scattered snow showers, really nothing at all. Looks like it'll dry out possibly here for the Alaska Peninsula, maybe some clearing, and then a few scattered snow showers back to the west. And for tomorrow, about the same pattern there. Areas of snow here, especially south of the ice edge, but clear skies out along the coastline with VFR, Bristol Bay up into the interior. Variable cloudiness up here to the north, but the lower stuff will be up over the north slope and maybe even a little farther out toward the Arctic coast. There's some areas of marginal VFR up in that location. Still hanging on to the clouds and some areas of snow from the Wrangell Mountains, maybe the extreme eastern Alaska range areas, scattered snow showers in the North Gulf Coast. That low pulling back to the west a little bit, but most of the moisture actually shifting off with this system here into western Canada, and the last trough finally swinging across. So look for a decrease in the rain and snow showers over the Panhandle tomorrow. Generally southwest winds breaking in across the area, and the inside waters will probably go southwest tomorrow afternoon and drop off. Here's the next big storm coming up to about this location tomorrow afternoon. That could probably spread some light rain or snow as far north as the peninsula tomorrow afternoon. Maybe some snow conditions, light snow. At this point, doesn't look too significant, at least for through tomorrow there for the eastern Aleutians. No change out over the Bering Sea. Lots of clouds, occasional snow showers, and temperatures below freezing. And then the big storm on a strong jet stream coming northward there. That's going to push that frontal system right up across Kodiak Island tomorrow night, and then push it up into right to the North Gulf Coast. So pretty good chance of seeing storm force winds here right through this area of the coastline. Definitely gales, possibly up into Prince William Sound. Behind the front, winds drop off down into that 20 to 30 knot range or less Rain back on the increase there, and again the winds, big increase in the winds along the coast during the afternoon on Monday, again from about 30 knots down here on the south coast to 50 knots up on the north coast there, and those winds probably will come up even over the inside waters, but that won't happen until Monday night. And then it looks like this entire low center beyond Monday will track right up somewhere into south central Alaska, maybe over toward Cordova, or come back in maybe over toward Iliamna. Time will only tell, but that'll happen toward, well, Tuesday, Wednesday night, in that time period. Today, temperatures below zero for the North Slope and the Arctic coastal areas into the afternoon, -15 in Anaktuvuk. Arctic Village did push up to 0. 5 above Fort Yukon, while temperatures ranged here all starting out well below zero this morning. Came up in the sunshine to 16 degrees at Fairbanks, 10 degrees in Ambler, 0 at Selawik, and a 6 above over at Kotzebue, 14 at Nome, and there's a -9 at Tin City. 10 degrees at Gulkana, and that 7 is at Snowshoe Lake, 32 degrees down at Cordova, while Yakutat was missing, not really just on this chart. They were 34 degrees at 4:30 with rain, fog, east winds at 30 miles an hour. That low center still to the south of them, and then here's the cold air still over the northern panhandle. That's the areas you're going to see the snow continuing into tonight, but well into the 40s down to the south, so nothing but rain down there. 30s for Kodiak Island, 20s Bristol Bay, and the Aleutians 30s, but lower 30s out to the west, and the Pribilofs in the 20s. For the lows tonight out there, not much change. Lows in the 20s, lower 20s for the Pribilofs, and 20s for the peninsula here, but back down to near zero over northeast Bristol Bay, and near or above or a little below zero here across much of the southwest interior, then dropping back down to the bottom again, anywhere from 30 to 40 below here over the northeast interior, down toward Eagle once again, and then possibly Northway depending on how much cloudiness holds in the area there. So I'll probably keep it up a little bit warmer there, much milder over the panhandle. And for highs tomorrow, again, about like today, coldest. Look for highs in the -20s for the North Slope there, and staying below zero, well, from the Brooks Range all the way up to the north. Right around zero here for the central interior. South of the mountains, much warmer. Look for highs in the 20s and 40s for the southeast coast. And for flying weather, again, IFR early in the day here over the southern southeast coast. Otherwise, marginal conditions in areas here back to the west, all improving throughout the afternoon, especially tomorrow afternoon. Marginal VFR hanging on to the eastern or eastern portions of the southeast interior. Good VFR here in between, all the way out into the offshore areas of the southwest coast. Swath of marginal VFR out through the Bering Strait, coming down from the Arctic coastal areas there. Look for anywhere IFR or marginal VFR anywhere here at times over the entire Bering Sea and the Aleutians. There'll be some breaks out here though, but watch for some IFR to begin to increase and spread up toward the eastern Aleutians here and over toward Sand Point into the afternoon, probably the late afternoon. For passes, Anaktuvuk VFR, Adigan VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill, all good tomorrow. Same thing for Rainy. Wide open for windy as well. And Isabel looking good. Mentasta, though, hanging on to that moisture that's lingering there over the east side that I just spoke of. Marginal VFR probably could last well into the afternoon. And for Tanita, though, nothing but VFR conditions. For Portage, Sealing's visibility is unlimited there. That's actually good for all of south central Alaska. Chilkoot and White starting out low and then look for gradual improvement throughout the day. For the freezing levels here, usual position near the Aleutians, right up the coastline, North Gulf Coast, but now north of the Panhandle, although kind of hanging on up here late tonight and early tomorrow morning there. So means snow to the north, Skagway, Haines, and then rain down here where it's 2,000 to 4,000 feet, or actually 2,000 to 3,000 feet over the southern areas. And looking at icing threats, a little light to isolated moderate rime or mixed icing, kind of an unstable air mass coming in here, which is more conducive to mixed icing. Otherwise icing free, but a big area down here to the south poised to sweep up and smack the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island Monday evening and overnight Monday night, and then on up into the interior, south interior on, on Monday, and it'll come up to the Peninsula and Kodiak Sunday night, tomorrow night. Upper level wind flow chart for tomorrow, a weak low here swinging by something like this. Otherwise, kind of a break here in the pattern with the main jet dropping southwards. That's going to tend to shut the moisture off over the panhandle a little bit. But the next system out here, this strong jet will angle right up into the southern interior tomorrow night, Monday. For the 9,000-foot wind flow, trough axis right through here tomorrow, so light variable conditions there. Southwesterlies 20 to 40 knots south of that. Northeasterlies 20 to 40 knots on the northwest side of that position. A little weak low here, bringing some snow shower activity out to the western Aleutians. 3,000-foot winds, much the same. Big storm down here developing. Going to follow right up like this along this trough axis here. A couple of weak lows only mean light variable winds, southwest 25 to 30 into the panhandle. Turbulence, moderate chop out here with the gusty north winds, a break through this area, not much over the interior, moderate chop early on for the panhandle. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Now, not all locations operate 24 hours a day. A lot of them close down overnight. If you have a forecast for a weather reporting and forecasting station which does operate less than 24 hours a day, you're going to see something interesting on that. What you're going to see is a TAF amended that says nil amendment and gives you the hours that that particular location is closed as far as weather information is concerned. This, by the way, can be a good indicator to you that the airport does not report weather on a 24-hour basis. Essentially what this is telling you is that even if the forecast weather changes dramatically for this airport during these hours when the weather observing is closed, you will not get an amended terminal airdrome forecast. Now, what if forecasts would be issued during the time that weather facilities are closed at a particular location? Then what you're going to see is a TAF that looks like this. It's simply going to say nil, in other words, no forecast issued because we don't have any weather observing going on there. And then the end of record indicator, that equal sign. The nil appears in the place of instead of the forecast text. After 2 complete observations are received at that particular location, then a delayed forecast will be issued. This can have a significant impact on your flight planning if the weather in the area of your destination is generally lousy. You may not be able to get a forecast for your destination before your departure. And for flight planning, you might have to rely on nearby facilities and area forecasts during that period. Let's talk about the wind. The third W, wind, is coded just as the METAR winds are coded. A 3-digit true direction to the nearest 10 degrees and a 2 or possibly 3-digit, depending on the wind speed, code for the wind speed. And then KT for knots afterwards. Forecasts of gusts will be noted, as will variable winds, just as they are in the METAR. In this case, what we've got is a pretty nice wind, a wind from 270 degrees true at a wind speed of 10 knots. Now, what would it look like if we had calm winds here? Calm winds would be coded with all zeros, 5 zeros here. If the winds are expected to be variable, the way the wind group would show up is like this, VRB for variable, and then the wind speed. These winds are variable in direction at a wind speed of 3 knots. Now, if you've got a pretty strong wind or gusty wind, it would show up like this. A variable wind, it's still variable in direction, of 16 gusting to 28 knots. This is different than METAR because there's no provision in the TAF code for indicating the variable wind direction. There's nothing after this to tell you the direction that the wind is variable between. You just know that it's variable and you know the wind speed, 16 gusting to 28 knots. This is used only for very light winds or when convective activity is forecast, and in either case, nobody really knows what the wind direction is going to be. Okay, after we've decoded the 3 W's, what are we looking for? We're looking for visibility. Visibility here, just like in the METARs, the visibility will have the letters SM for statute miles after the visibility, just to remind us that this is visibility and that it's forecast in statute miles. If the visibility is forecast to be greater than 6 statute miles, what you'll see is P6SM standing for plus 6 statute miles or greater than 6 statute miles. Now, the weather and restrictions to visibility are coded with the same codes that are used in the METAR reports. In the TAF, restrictions to visibility are only included when the prevailing visibility is expected to be 6 miles or less. So you might, for instance, see 6 statute miles with haze, 5 statute miles with smoke, or 2 statute miles with mist. The sky condition will be reported in the TAFs in the same way it's indicated in the METARs, except the only specific cloud type forecast in the TAFs will be cumulonimbus clouds, CVs. If they had to pick only one to tell us about, I'm sure glad they picked that one, because that's really important information. So let's take a look at our sky conditions. If it shows up as SCT 005, BKN 025CB, what that indicates is a forecast of 500 scattered, ceiling of 2,500 broken with cumulonimbus clouds. Remember that the ceiling is the lowest layer of broken or overcast clouds. If you have clear skies, what you're going to see is SKC in there if the skies are forecast to be clear for that time period. If the sky is expected to be obscured by a surface-based phenomenon, then VV will show up with the vertical visibility. In this particular case, vertical visibility is 800 feet. Indefinite ceiling, 800 feet. Now, the TAFs in the U.S. prepared by the National Weather Service will not include forecasts of partial obscurations. Like in the METAR, the ceiling layer is not designated specifically in the coding, but it's the lowest broken or overcast layer, in this case the broken layer, at 2,500 feet, not the scattered layer, because the scattered layer is not the ceiling, or it's the vertical visibility into an obscuration. Now, sometimes in the TAF you will see a forecast of low-level non-convective wind shear, WS standing for wind shear. Low-level non-convective wind shear is forecast when wind shear is expected to exist anywhere up to about 2,000 feet AGL. What our coding here means is that wind shear is expected to exist at 1,000 feet AGL with winds from 310 degrees true at 22 knots. And then at the end, we have our equal sign, which is our end of report indicator.
Welcome back. Along the coast tomorrow, southwest 20 to 25 knots. And 20 to 25 also here over the inside waters, although more of a southeast direction here. And of course, well, the area up there today had southeast winds, so that eventually should spread some warmer air in to the northern areas and then become southwest late tomorrow afternoon and overnight tomorrow night. And then for Monday, the next big storm and frontal system bringing storm force winds here, or at least full gales to storm force winds up along the north coast and 30 knots down along the south coast. Inside waters, with a lower pressure up now into the Yukon, definitely warmer southerly winds as high as 25 to 30 knots. There will be blowing into the Skagway area, lighter winds at about 15, and then the winds will come up again Monday evening. Monday evening and overnight Monday night. Okay, for Prince William Sound, north 10 tomorrow. And westerlies 20 knots here, central Gulf Coast, all the way down to Kodiak Island. Northwest at about 20 for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, and north 15 for Cook Inlet. Then on Monday, everything takes a change. Actually, the front, look for some pretty strong winds to come in across Kodiak Island tomorrow evening and overnight, gales for sure. and that'll push up over the western Gulf Coast here. But as that front pushes up, these winds will drop back to 20 knots. So look for gale force winds to shift up, possibly into Prince William Sound, northeast as high as 30 knots there for Cook Inlet, but again dropping back to 20 knots here behind the front. For the Bristol Bay area tomorrow, east-northeast 15 knots and kind of a changeable pattern here up to 20 on the Pacific side. Then for Monday, northerlies to northwest, gale force here across the peninsula, northeast 25 for Bristol Bay, and the low center coming northward, so those northeasterlies coming down to 20 knots for the water southwest of Kodiak. Out in the Aleutians, light winds out here, maybe some gales on the south side of the Nikolsky there, otherwise small craft advisories. And for Monday, those take more of a northerly direction, 15 to 20 to 25 to 30 knots with maybe even gale force gusts there around Unalaska and Dutch Harbor. For the southwest coast, northeasterlies 25 to 30 knots, strongest around St. Lawrence Island, and that'll extend down into the northern Bering Sea, but small craft advisories even for the Pribilofs with seas up to 9 feet. And then on Monday, strong north winds here, and of course much colder temperatures are going to be riding in on those northerly winds. So we're going to look at some freezing spray conditions, a heavy freezing spray, especially coming off the ice edge there through this area. Northerly winds, snow, maybe even, or snow showers for the Pribilofs. Then up along the Arctic coast, light winds tomorrow, except out this way, 20 to 25 knots there, but very light westerlies, barely a breeze on the east side. And then taking a look at Monday, those northerlies in the 20 to 25 knot range, so brisk wind advisories for the Chukchi Sea, light winds along the central coast, maybe east at 20, possibly on the east side. For tonight, still some moisture here over the Panhandle, areas of snow up over the extreme southeast, clear over the interior and cold once again. A day much like today coming up for tomorrow, except watching this system spread up to the northeast late in the afternoon for an increase in the winds and moisture in that area. Snow showers on the decrease, especially once this front finally, or this trough finally kicks through, and then a little bit of a break, and then conditions coming down again, increase in the wind and rain all through this area. Winter storm watch out for the Kenai Peninsula. Have a great evening and good night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
If you are interested in serving on your local Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council, the deadline to apply is Friday, March 21st. The councils provide information and recommendations to the Federal Subsistence Board on subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing. For more information on the advisory councils and how to apply, call 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov. This message sponsored by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.